Have you ever noticed how some women carry a quiet presence that naturally draws people in without speaking, without trying to impress, and without engaging in the usual social games? There is something about them that goes beyond beauty or charm. They appear grounded in an inner strength that feels steady and unshakable. When she enters a room, the atmosphere seems to shift slightly, not because she seeks attention, but because she carries the calm energy of someone who has faced life's storms and discovered peace on the other side. This reflects the essence of emotional maturity. As Carl Jung might describe it, it is a sign of someone who has begun the process of individuation, the meaningful journey toward becoming whole. Emotional maturity does not mean remaining calm at all times or being untouched by pain. In many ways, it grows out of those very experiences. Such a woman has confronted her shadow and started to understand it. She no longer avoids her fears or places them onto others. She does not feel the need to control people or allow herself to be controlled, because she understands that love cannot be forced. It can only be welcomed. Jung once wrote that, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will guide your life, and you will call it fate." The emotionally mature woman has experienced this truth directly. She has witnessed how unresolved wounds can appear as desire, how loneliness can disguise itself as love, and how the need to be chosen can slowly weaken one's sense of self-worth. There was a time when she confused attachment with affection and validation with genuine love. Like many people, she once followed the unconscious patterns of her past, searching in others for what she had not yet offered herself. Yet every heartbreak became a mirror, revealing where she had turned away from her own heart. Each disappointment and betrayal removed another illusion, gradually and often painfully. She realized that the real danger was not rejection, but forgetting herself. Perhaps you recognize this feeling as well, the deep wish to be understood and the quiet fear of being invisible. The human heart naturally longs for recognition. But when this desire becomes desperate, it can push love further away. You'll understood that the more we pursue our unlived parts through other people, the more entangled we become. Projection becomes the shadow's most convincing disguise. Placing our unmet needs onto someone else and calling it destiny. The emotionally mature woman no longer accepts this illusion. She has begun the inward journey into her own depths, where true transformation takes place. In those depths, she encountered her inner child, the vulnerable part still hoping to be chosen, still longing to feel worthy. Instead of leaving that part behind again, she stayed with it. That decision changed everything. Emotional maturity begins in that moment when you finally stop running from yourself. You stop expecting others to heal what only you can face within. From that inner stillness emerges a different kind of beauty, one that no makeup, charm, or perfection can ever truly imitate. This kind of beauty is magnetic not because it shines more brightly, but because it feels genuine. It touches something ancient within the human spirit, the archetype of the wise woman, the alchemist, the one who turns suffering into strength. In mythology, she appears as the goddess who descends into the underworld and returns carrying light. In everyday life, she is the woman who understands that boundaries are not barriers, that forgiveness does not mean accepting abuse, and that love begins with the courage to stand on one's own. Perhaps this is why she feels so compelling. Not because she feeds the ego or fulfills an illusion, but because she awakens something deeper, the desire in others to rise to a higher level of truth.
Wow.
The emotionally mature woman challenges people simply through her presence. Her message is clear: do not come seeking completion. Come after you have begun to understand yourself. For a man who has not yet confronted his own shadow, she may feel intimidating. For a man who has, she feels like home. Her appeal is not created by youth or perfection, but by the authenticity that naturally flows from who she is. She understands her identity, and that kind of clarity cannot be imitated. She no longer looks for power through manipulation or seduction. Instead, she carries it through quiet confidence and self-awareness. Yet her strength is not cold or rigid. It is a softness shaped by truth. Like the Stoic philosophers taught, she recognizes that control does not lie in external events, but in how one responds to them. As Seneca once wrote, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a person perfected without trials." She, too, has been shaped by the friction of life. Her wisdom is not merely intellectual. It is lived, formed through experience and reflection. If you pay close attention, you can sense something meaningful in her quietness. The presence of a person who has learned to trust herself. That is the foundation of her appeal. She does not need to be pursued or persuaded. She already feels complete.
How many women
Spend their early years hoping to be chosen. They shape themselves into forms they believe will be loved softer, smaller, more agreeable. They learn to smile through discomfort, hide their anger, and treat self-sacrifice as a virtue. Society often rewards compliance and labels it kindness. Yet deep within, an older voice remains the archetype of the wild woman that Jung and Clarissa Pinklarestes both described, quietly reminding them this is not who you were meant to become. The emotionally mature woman is the one who eventually listens to that voice. She begins the difficult process of unlearning. This transformation can feel like a kind of ending, because in many ways it is the end of the false self. The persona, as Jung described it, is the mask we wear to adapt to society. In small amounts it is useful, but when it becomes our identity it becomes harmful. For years she may have worn this mask, trying to gain love by being pleasing, capable, or successful. Yet the more she pursued approval, the further she moved away from her authentic self. Eventually there comes a moment when the mask begins to break. Sometimes it happens through heartbreak, loss, betrayal, or simply the exhaustion of pretending. In that moment of collapse, she begins to see clearly that the love she was seeking was only a reflection of the love she had withheld. From herself, Jung described this stage as confronting the shadow, meeting the parts of ourselves we once rejected. For a woman, this can mean facing her anger, her sensuality, her ambition, and her grieved emotions she was often taught to suppress. At first, this confrontation can feel unsettling. To face the shadow is to step into the unknown areas of the unconscious, to recognize both the beauty and the darker aspects within. Yet all archetypes exist in that inner space: the mother, the lover, the warrior, and the sage. Ignoring them means living only part of one's life. The emotionally mature woman chooses to integrate them. Through that integration, she moves toward wholeness. You can often notice this process in her presence. There is a sense of stability that cannot be imitated. When she speaks, her words come from awareness rather than performance. She does not rush to fill silence. She allows it to exist. Her empathy is not the naive kind that tries to solve everyone's problems. Instead, it is a compassionate understanding that recognizes where her responsibility ends and another person's begins. This represents a subtle yet powerful shift. From codependency to personal sovereignty, Jung believed that what remains unconscious will eventually return and shape our lives as fate. For many people, relationships become the stage where hidden wounds repeat themselves again and again. The emotionally mature woman recognizes this pattern and chooses to step away. From that cycle, she no longer pursues those who are emotionally unavailable or tolerates immaturity in relationships. She understands that these dynamics are not destiny but reflections of her own once unhealed parts. Instead of asking, "Why doesn't he love me?" she begins to ask a different question. Why do I remain where love does not flow freely? That single question marks the beginning of her transformation. She is no longer the one waiting to be rescued. She becomes the central figure in her own story. With this realization, her energy changes completely. When you no longer depend on others to complete you, you begin to attract relationships from a place of abundance rather than emptiness. Love then becomes a meeting of equals instead of an exchange built around unresolved wounds. Stoic philosophy expresses a similar idea through different language. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." Emotional maturity at its core is the discipline of thought. It is the ability to pause before reacting, to observe without being overwhelmed. This does not mean that the mature woman suppresses her emotions. In fact, she respects them. She allows herself to feel deeply, but she is not controlled by those feelings. She has learned the practice of inner stillness, the capacity to hold both joy and sorrow, without clinging to either. Picture a storm over the ocean, intense, chaotic, and unpredictable. An emotionally immature person may resemble a small boat tossed by the waves, reacting to every shift in the wind. The emotionally mature woman, however, has become like the ocean itself, vast, deep, and steady beneath the surface.
Ow.
The winds may continue to blow, yet her inner depth remains calm. This is what genuine presence feels like. And it is precisely this presence that makes her so compelling. Being around her creates the sense of being truly recognized, not flattered and not judged, simply understood. Her gaze does not demand attention. Instead, it invites connection. Her love does not consume, it expands. She can sit quietly with someone and still communicate a great deal because her energy no longer carries the tension of need. Once suggested that love arises from the meeting of two individuals who have become whole within themselves. Anything less becomes possession. When a man encounters such a woman, he is faced with a reflection of his own potential. She does not take the role of mother, nor does she reduce herself to make him appear greater. Instead, she holds space with calm strength, and through that presence, she awakens something within him, the quiet desire to grow and meet her at the same level of depth. If he chooses not to answer that call, she can walk away without resentment. Her peace is not something she negotiates. She understands that the purpose of love is not to lose oneself, but to discover oneself more deeply. This understanding gives her a natural radiance. She has transformed her pain into insight and her longing into clarity. Although she continues to feel emotions deeply, she is no longer controlled by them. There is a quiet mystery about a woman who has faced her darkness and learned to live beside it. She does not hide her scars or conceal her story. Instead, they become part of her presence, like golden threads woven into an ancient tapestry. She rarely speaks about strength. She expresses it through the way she lives. Nothing about her grace feels forced or performative. It grows from understanding both the fragility of life and the resilience of the human spirit. Carl Jung believed that the path toward wholeness is not about achieving perfection, but about integrating opposites, the light and the dark, the conscious and the unconscious, and the feminine and masculine aspects within each person. The emotionally mature woman has walked this path, often without realizing it, through many difficult experiences. She has encountered her inner masculine, the animus, and learned to bring it into balance. Where she once looked to others for protection, she now offers it to herself. Where she once depended on validation, she now creates her own sense of stability. This inner union, the harmony between strength and sensitivity, creates an energy that feels complete. And it is this completeness that makes her so magnetic. Standing in her presence reveals a rare combination, power and peace existing at the same time. She does not try to prove her worth through dominance or submission. She has moved beyond both extremes. Instead, she moves with quiet confidence. Much like a river that flows steadily in its own direction, strong not because it resists, but because it flows. Her calm is not passive, it reflects mastery. And like any form of mastery, it was developed through struggle. Emotional maturity is often born from facing chaos directly. Every heartbreak, every rejection, every sleepless night spent wondering why she was not enough, all of it became the fire that shaped her depth. Through these experiences, she began to understand what Epictetus meant when he said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Instead of asking why life felt unfair, she began asking how she could grow from what she was given. This shift from feeling like a victim to becoming the author of her own life marks the real moment of transformation. She has realized that no one escapes the process of being broken open. The difference is that she chose to rebuild herself. With awareness, through this process, she discovered an essential truth. When pain is faced with consciousness, it becomes wisdom. Jung described this as the transcendent function, the inner transformation that turns opposing forces into something greater. The emotionally mature woman has practiced this kind of inner alchemy within herself. Her compassion does not come from theory, but from lived experience. She can hold space for another person's pain, because she has faced her own and moved through it. There is a quiet stillness about her that can feel unsettling to those who are not ready for it. It is the calm of someone who no longer chases. When you speak with her, she truly listens, not to prepare a response, but to understand. At the same time, if someone attempts to manipulate her, they quickly encounter the firm boundary of a person who respects her own worth. This balance between openness and discernment is what makes her presence so compelling. People sense that. She cannot be easily deceived because she has already recognized many illusions within herself. In Jungian terms, she has integrated enough of her shadow that she no longer projects it onto others. As a result, she no longer blames others for every discomfort. She no longer looks for villains to explain her pain. Instead, she reflects on her reactions, observes her triggers, and asks which part of her still requires care and understanding. This level of self-awareness is uncommon, and it naturally radiates through her presence, but make no mistakes, she is not detached. She feels everything. The difference is that she feels without being overwhelmed. She can love deeply without losing herself, grieve sincerely without falling apart, and hope without illusion. She has learned the practice of non-attachment, not as emotional coldness, but as a form of inner clarity. The Stoics describe this as apathy and not indifference, but freedom from destructive passions. This balance between heart and mind, emotion and wisdom, is what makes her so compelling. When she loves, it is a conscious choice rather than a compulsion. When she gives, it comes from fullness, not from emptiness. She does not confuse chemistry with true connection, nor attention with genuine affection. She understands the difference between being chosen and being respected, between attraction and alignment. In a world often focused on appearances, her authenticity feels almost rebellious. She does not chase trends or constant validation. Her sense of worth is internal and self-sustaining. She lives by the Stoic belief that what truly matters within you cannot easily be taken away. To love her is like entering a space built on truth. That is why men who have not yet confronted themselves may find her intimidating. She reflects the parts of them that remain need. To love her sincerely requires courage because she asks for presence rather than performance. She will not accept partial love, partial honesty, or a half-hearted life. She understands that real intimacy requires two people who are willing to see and be seen without masks. For her, love is not an escape. It is a form of revelation. She does not seek completion, she seeks to be met. And perhaps that is what makes her truly irresistible. Not only her beauty, though she may have that as well, but her depth. She stands as a quiet reminder that there is another way to live, not merely reacting to the world, but engaging with it consciously. Her presence draws others back to their own center and seems to say without words, become who you are meant to be. If a man truly looks at her and genuinely sees her, he may notice something ancient in her gaze, the look of someone who has faced her own depths and discovered understanding instead of despair. There is a certain gravity in her calmness, a silent invitation to rise above the shallowness of ordinary desire. It is not that she is difficult to love, it is that she cannot be loved superficially. Her spirit asks for depth, honesty, and reciprocity. She lives on a level where shallow games simply cannot survive. To the emotionally immature, this can feel unsettling. To the awakened, however, it is magnetic. Being with such a woman invites growth and encourages a person to step into their own wholeness. Jung once wrote that the meeting of two personalities is like the contact between two chemical substances. If a reaction occurs, both are transformed. That is often what happens when a man encounters an emotionally mature woman. Transformation begins. Her presence reveals who he truly is, not through criticism, but through reflection. Around her, he may feel both recognized and challenged. She does not flatter his ego, nor does she compete with it. Instead, she calls forward his highest self, the inner masculine capable of integrity, empathy, and strength without the need for dominance. Her maturity encourages his own development because she connects not with his performance, but with his potential, and that is rare to be valued not only for how you appear, but for the person you are capable of becoming. Yet she will not pause her life while someone catches up. Her love is patient, but it is not stagnant. She does not cling to possibilities. She respects reality. Her boundaries are not barriers. They are expressions of self-respect. If you meet her at that level, she will open fully. If you cannot, she will simply close the gate with calm acceptance and continue forward. She understands that leaving what is misaligned can also be an act of love for herself and even for the other person. This understanding did not come easily. There were years when she confused intensity with true connection and chemistry with destiny. Through heartbreak, she realized that desire without emotional depth burns quickly and fades without meaning. From the remains of old patterns, she slowly rebuilt herself from within. Each time life broke her open, she uncovered another level of self-awareness. Every ending became a meaningful teacher. Like kintsugi, the Japanese art of repairing broken pottery with gold, she filled her cracks with truth until the very experiences that once wounded her became part of her beauty. There is a seer